It is the month of February, and Kyle over there pitched us an idea, and we graciously went with it. So, Kyle, tell us a little bit about what we're doing. We're doing a theme on top of a theme. We already have the year theme of anniversaries, and you thought, hey, let's even narrow that down more.
Yeah. I couldn't remember which came first, but I think you're right. I think that the year anniversary came first.
Year and then your idea.
Okay, so this did limit our picks, but this was a thought that we had a few times just in the ether. We had talked about doing more foreign films. I think that we talk a lot about them adjacently, but they're never the main topic of what we're doing. There's not a month that starts with an I, so you can't do international anything. So foreign February is what came to mind, and I thought that it would be really fun to explore some of these. So it did narrow our pool a little bit, but there was a lot of foreign films that celebrated anniversaries in 2025. The first one kicking things off is one that's actually been on, I think, all of our long lists for a while, and that is Day of the Beast from 1995, which I'm very excited about. There's an FYE that's closing down near me, and they had 3 4K copies of Day of the Beast. I can't believe that thing that exists. Period. I've never seen this movie, so this is totally new to me. But I've seen the poster plenty. I assumed that it was a movie from the late 70s, early 80s. It is not. It's from 95. But there is a 4K release of this that FYE, even though it's closing and everything's 30% off, the 4K was still like $45. So we did not pick that one up. We watched this one on Tubi, which it is available on. It's also available on Shudder. It is also on Shudder, but my Shudder app wasn't working when I tried to watch this. It just kept freezing, so it's kind of brutal. But anyway, I'll jump right into it unless anybody else has something
Kyle
to say
picked this?
Distinctly. Yeah. I did, and Matt was a little bummed, but Matt has an excellent pick for next week.
It's not what I wanted, but it's no. At least
it's
this
what
got
you got.
discussed. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
but I'll jump right into it. Oh, what could that be? I picked up The Beast, alcoholic monster energy drink.
No.
Yep. So I don't know how long we're gonna have this one last, but we're drinking it because we go along with it. But
it's
Scott,
there.
are you got something else going on too?
I have Monk in Public, which is a it's local. It's from a town called Hartville, which is just maybe 20 miles south of me. But it's like a porter or something like that.
Oh, you got dark beers
back to back
tonight.
I think that I might have a dark beer next week too. So
yeah.
Oh no. I'm not even doing beer next week because it's Foreign Film February, baby.
There we go. He's back.
Yeah, we got to do something else. But I was looking at my international picks for drinks, and they were limited. But not today, not for today.
No, that's perfect, and I think you're going to regret that, and I can't wait to see what happens.
No doubt, no doubt about it. It does taste like Monster Energy. That's a problem. So
yes,
1995 Spanish film, like Spain Spanish. Alex de la Iglesia, who also directed Perito de Durango and Witchin' and Bitchin', which I know Witchin' and Bitchin' was discussed on this podcast.
No.
Ago.
I only did it as a. I think I talked about it as a. What did we watch? Because it's still.
Okay.
I think it's too young.
Okay.
It might be 2017 or something like that.
It was picked as a double feature at least twice. I am slowly going through the double features to see, because there was a question once. There was a question once about what was picked most as a double feature, and I'm getting to the bottom of this. Thanks again to a friend of the show, so who sent us our spreadsheet. Anyway, so this is hysterical. This is a great flick. This is a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun with it, and I knew nothing about it, so I went in completely blind, and I suggest that too. I think knowing that it is a horror comedy or a black comedy is helpful, but the idea is that we are following a priest named Angel who on Christmas Eve is doing some really debaucherous shit. This is during the opening credits. Like he is stealing wallets. He is keying cars. He's pushing street performers. He pushes a mime into basically a subway landing, which is one of the I burst out laughing. But this priest is doing some really gnarly shit. We don't really understand why. Right before the credits, a friend of the priest, he confides in a fellow priest that he's going to do some seriously evil shit, and but it's for a greater good, as we come to find out. And that priest that he shares that secret with immediately gets crushed by a crucifix. So that's what we're setting up the tone with here.
So I do need to call out, like, the way that I mean, I just recently saw this movie for the first time, but I've been on the hunt for this movie for a really long time, and it wasn't until it showed up on Shudder that I was like, oh, I can finally see it. Yeah. But this was one of the this is one of the movies in, I've referenced it for years now, the Fangoria 101 horror movies you've never heard of, but you probably see. But then on top of that, when it got added to Shudder around that exact same time, Elric talked about it on Colors of the Dark, and I think they even brought it up as one of their favorite, like, Christmas horror films, like underrated Christmas horror films. So until you had pitched this, I was like, this is going to be a Christmas movie for us this year.
Yeah.
But it kind of checks this box even better, because it's like, it's got those Christmas elements for sure, but it is not like as deep. I mean, I guess it's as Christmassy as last year's Dark Angel was. But
That's true. If you were to put them side by, it is. Christmas is the background, is the environment in which we are doing a thing, and it does touch upon.
Although I would argue
that
the Christmas side of Day of the Beast is a little bit more important.
It is. Yeah. It's true. It is more in depth.
It's more integral to the plot. It moves the plot along, whereas Dark Angel could literally happen whenever.
It's not just because visually Christmas is more exciting. It does lend itself to the plot. But on Christmas Eve, this priest is doing some really dastardly shit, and he's kind of frantic. He has this frenetic energy. He ends up at and all this stuff starts to reveal itself. He ends up at a heavy metal record store. He sort of befriends the employee Jose, who recommends a boarding house in which he can stay at for the night. He recommends a heavy metal show that's literally playing at a venue called Hell. The band that's playing, I think, is called Satanists, or like
Satanica.
Satanica, like it's those fonts are so hard to read, but silly and silly goose or cutie patootie. It could have said anything, but so he befriends this this record store employee Jose, and he goes and he stays at this boarding house, and he has stolen somebody's luggage in that credits sequence, so he has a whole plan that we are not totally privy to. Basically, though, the long and the short of it is that he has convinced himself, or has discovered in he's a theological professor, and what he's discovered is that he thinks that the Antichrist is going to be born today, like Christmas Eve into Christmas 1995. He does not know where, though, and he is attempting to commune with the devil in order to sort of like do sort of like he's trying to like betray like an undercover deal. Like he's trying to commune with the devil so that he can kill the Antichrist, and so he's trying to do all this blasphemous stuff in order to summon the devil, but time is already running out, really. So what he needs to do is he needs to try to figure out how to summon the devil to him. And besides Jose, our heavy metal enthusiast, who also drops acid and also gives his grandpa acid for medicine, which is fucking his pantsless grandpa in this boarding house. He drops acid.
Hanging dong.
I just hanging dong. Loved it. So happy to see that.
The pantsless grandpa is such a highlight of this movie.
It's so great.
You heard it here
that grandpa
first.
has zero
HMN's
lines.
favorite thing about Day of the Beast is Old Man Dick.
Old Man Dick.
Tiny,
and that's why my double feature is Nosferatu.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. But he's frantic and trying to figure out how he's going to do this, and he figures that he goes to a bookstore and he sees the book of famous television occultist Kavan, who has a real name that I've already forgotten, but Kavan. He tries to steal the book, because he's like, this is a key to try to figure out how to talk with the devil. And he successfully steals the book only in the sense that the cops catch him. They interview him, and then he slams the cop with a clothing iron and escapes. There's a lot of slapstick stuff that happens in this, which is really mainly used to get out of situations. It's like slapstick transitional timing is very funny. But him and Jose, who is very high already at this point, go to Kavan's apartment, tie him up, and tell him that he needs to help them figure out how to talk to the devil. And Kavan is basically like, this is all a work. Like, I'm not a real, like, I can't really do this stuff. Everything in my book is a hoax. But he does have some knowledge of the subject. So the things that he doesn't include in the book, he shares with Angel, which includes that in order to have this ritual to talk with the devil, you need virgin's blood. Now, the lady friend who is coming to visit Kavan for Christmas Eve is not a virgin. Angel finds that out after he basically like ties her up and brings her into the apartment to try to get her blood, to no avail. So then he goes out and he takes blood from the boarding house. And this is where things get really crazy. Like, I'm telling a lot of detail, but it's all very important. And it's all very frantic. He goes and he's trying to get blood from a virgin. He thinks that the boarding house manager is a virgin, but the boarding house owner, like, is suspect of him. And this whole kerfuffle ensues, which is quite fun, in which he steals blood from the boarding house manager in a syringe that Jose had in his pocket because he just is drug fueled and has all these things. But basically, the police are now on to that Kavan has been taken in as a kidnapping and they're on the way to the apartment. They start a ritual. They successfully do a ritual in which they contact the devil in a roach and then a goat form. The devil taunts them directly to Angel's face and then is gone. The police have arrived. These three, who they've kind of addressed that they're going to be the wise men in this opposite birth of Jesus. Like the Antichrist is going to mirror the birth of Christ, but in all these opposite ways. So these three have deemed themselves kind of the wise men that are going to pay visit to the Antichrist as he's born on this day. Kavan and Angel and Jose get separated because as they try to escape the kidnapping apartment together, because now they're in cahoots, Kavan falls off of a neon Schweppes sign onto the streets of Madrid.
Weird.
So
Well,
strange.
listen, I feel like we need to pause for just a couple seconds.
Please, at any point.
Let's pause.
Yeah.
Let's pause for a couple seconds because I need to mention the following things. First of all, Angel gets his ear blown off by the mother.
Thank you.
Oh yeah.
With a shotgun, which is
Shotgun,
like one of the first like truly brutal moments in the movie. But then it's followed almost immediately by Kavan like walking into a convenience store that's just filled with dead bodies
people.
nonchalantly.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it's such a weird scene. And then we have to just call out the snarling of that like he-goat as it stands on its hind legs staring down Angel. But I want to talk about this particular scene because I think that this set piece of them all hanging from this sign is like, I mean, there's points where it's super 90s green screen obvious, but it is still like a really well-structured and kind of stressful set piece because like they're also on acid. One dude keeps trying to kill himself. They're like trying to stay together. Like it is this kind of cool, intense scene in the middle of this like fairly wacky movie. And it's still wacky as it's happening, but it's just really I wanted to make sure that we actually highlight how cool I think this particular scene is with how it's structured and framed and like this movie on paper sounds very goofy, but it is competently made, which is why I think it's so beloved in like the cult circles of horror.
You know what the thread? I'm glad you're bringing this up because the thread to me that keeps it together is that all three of them have this air of they do not know what they're talking about. So this theology professor has figured out an algorithm or like some sort of like equation, but he does not know enough about Satan or Satanists or like the satanic culture to know what to do. That's why he finds himself in this record store and is asking for backmasking records. Like that's why all the, Kavan is the same thing. It's like he's written about all this occult stuff, but like he knows in some way about some of this, but like is he a fraud? Like what is he? And then Jose is the reverse of Angel, where it's like he doesn't know anything about like religious stuff or any sort of moral. He has no moral compass, so to speak. Christian moral compass. He's got all these drugs. Like he's just doing his thing. Like he does not give a fuck. He's just gonna kill himself twice. Attempt to kill himself twice back to back. Like there's no like the first save is fine, and he's like, no, it's fine. I'm just gonna kill myself, and he's gonna try to jump off the shrubs. So at this point in time, they're all in cahoots, but all of their belief systems are completely whacked.
Which I think
it's amazing.
To jump to a spoiler at the end, but Jose doesn't make it. You know what I mean? Like he is killed by the Satanists, and I think one of the most beautiful things
he's killed by the devil.
Well, he's killed by the devil, yeah. But one of the most beautiful things in this whole movie is that we get to the end of the movie, and Angel and Caval are basically like they're unhoused. No one can ever know about what they did. And while that's like really a bummer for, Caval, who's used to being in front of a camera and pontificating, for Angel, he just misses his new friend that he made on this journey. And it does a really effective job of like, yeah, this might be we might be talking about the events of this movie taking place over a week max. But you do see how much he enjoys being around this person who is so dramatically different than everything his life has been up until that point. And I think that it's those little moments I think make the movie so special.
Well, Jose's a yes man, right? Like Jose will, in a world in Catholicism where there's so much no, and there's so much, and there's so much border and barricade, and like you can't even touch or look at this thing. Jose is like, he says yes to everything, even if it's, convoluted. And then actually in turn, even if it is to save the world, even if it's to go against maybe the thing that Jose in his mind had thought he was, celebrating and like, and appreciating. It is really wacky, but it has, again, I've said it 3 times now, but it has this frantic energy that I'm now, convinced that I'm portraying through how I'm talking about it. But, that whole escape from the apartment on the Schweppes sign really intense, and it does separate our group. So now, Kavan is taken in, and people know who he is. He's gone to the hospital. But Kavan is now convinced that this needs to be solved tonight, or the end of the world is going to happen tonight. While Jose and Angel are also now continuing to try to seek out clues while also hiding from the police, because now they're on the radar. So what happens is Angel and Jose travel through Madrid. They go to a Nostradamus meetup because Angel has an inkling that somehow this pamphlet that got handed out to him is going to be an answer. It is not. This metal club that Jose suggested, where called Hell, where the band is playing, also a dead end. But Angel is just getting his ass kicked left and right. Like he's getting shot out by police. He's getting beat up by metalheads. Like he is kind of on his way out, and it's really broken his spirit. He's starting to question if this is an actual reality. And truly the only person who is like keeping him in it is Jose, and he is not a reliable narrator as far as Angel can see. But as he gets his ass kicked, as Jose has saved him and has pulled him out of the wreckage of hell, literally, they find that Kavan has taken to live TV to tell people and try to communicate with Angel in front of all this audience that he does believe he knows where the Antichrist will be born. And he has this idea. They have this really cool sequence where Angel is on a payphone calling into the live program and watching the live program through a window where television screens are. The payphone runs out. But then Kavan has like one last detail that makes sense. They go and they find each other, which I don't quite remember how they find each other, but they get back together. The whole group is in cahoots now. Kavan tells Angel who is now seriously doubting the whole thing. He's like really not in it. But Kavan has figured out that the opposite of the cross, the symbol of the cross, is two separate sort of lines that has been signed on Satan's name since for forever, since Satanists have been signing off on shit, I guess. Then they find that the gates of Europe, or the gate of Europe, which is, I guess, is in Madrid, looks like a separated cross. It has two big buildings, and one of them, they're both kind of slanted, and they think that this is where the Antichrist is going to be born. And lo and behold, they are right in front of it. They go in, they hear a crying baby, and then we kind of get this conclusion to what we've been seeing through this whole movie, which we've not really touched upon here because I think it's an important part to the end, but there has been a gang of people setting fire and killing the unhoused and other things in Madrid, looking to clean up Madrid. So, and I looked back at Wikipedia. They call it an extreme right group, which makes total sense. They're trying to clean up the streets of Madrid, and they're dressed as such. Like, they're dressed as yuppie fucking scum.
They're the white boys from Dark Angel.
Mm-hmm. They are the white boys from Dark Angel. Absolutely. And they are also there at this same time and place. And, we hear a baby crying, and that extreme group opens fire on the group where the baby is. One of their group member, and then they open fire at our group, particularly at Kavan. Kavan drops. Jose and Angel escape to the roof. Here is where it's revealed that one of these members of this group is actually Satan. Like, we have, full horns, goat head,
and
body.
What a fucking shot, man. Woo! Like, the shot of this goat
really
head human body with the lightning behind him.
Yeah.
And it's like that green screen, dark and blue and purple sky behind. It is, I mean, if for no other reason, look up the final act of this movie just to see how beautiful this reveal looks.
Yep.
Like, cinematically.
Really gorgeous. Really gorgeous. And so the devil gets an upper hand on Kavan, on Jose primarily. Like you said, Jose doesn't make it. Kavan gets, lit on fire, and beat to shit. He's already pretty beaten and bruised, just like Angel. But Angel has now believed, he's seen, he's believed, and he takes it out with a gun on not just the whole extreme right group that has been laying waste to the unhomed in Madrid, but to the devil who seems to be leading them. He goes ahead and kills the devil. Well, also maybe the Antichrist is dead, maybe it's not. It's kind of that part. It feels a little more ambiguous to me, but the fact of the matter is that Angel gave it to the devil, and now they really can't talk about it because nobody would believe him. Nobody. Kavan, months later, the show, his occult show, has a new host. They paid homage to him. They probably don't even know he's alive. Like, he's just fallen off the face of the earth. Angel is clearly no longer teaching seminary or theology anymore. But they are buds who are just on a bench living in Madrid, haggard, burned, lots of facial hair, and they seem to be doing just fine. The world keeps turning. And that's Day of the Beast, which is so much fun. I really don't know if I ever would have ventured in to watch it without picking it for the show. Honestly, I don't know. I don't know if I would have. I actually had Perdita Durango on my list before this was even in my wheelhouse, and this feels like more of a pick for HMN than that does. But it's fantastic.
When I was watching this movie this time around, because this was my second or third watch since I saw it last year, I found myself not thinking that this is true to the movie, but having a fun other interpretation of the movie in which Angel and all of them are completely incorrect, and that this is the results of the acid trip that they've taken. And that they actually did nothing but kill the people of this far right group, but are able to live their lives believing that they did something good. which
hate
in
that.
that I've seen no interpretations of this movie this way, but I
love
feel
that,
like
though. That's
but I
fantastic.
feel
I really
like
dig that.
I think it's a fun additional piece of taking down religion of like they just have to blindly believe that they may have done something evil, but it's easier to tell themselves they did something for good. Like it's especially because there's that shot where Angel sees the devil and then it cuts back and it is just a guy.
Right.
Like
Right.
again.
Yeah.
So it's like I started to wonder like, ooh, what
Right.
if
Yeah.
this was actually what was happening? Such a fun movie. I hope people go and check it out.
I feel like
Kyle-
Scott, like, since you have, one of these characters on your back, I just didn't know if you had any particular, Catholic guilt involved with this movie. Watching it.
So I enjoyed. I've been.
Have you seen this
waiting
before?
to watch this? No,
Okay.
no. Matt
All right.
told me about it when it hit Shudder last year.
And I think I said I'm gonna pick it.
Yeah, and I
eventually.
didn't touch
Yeah.
it. Yeah, I enjoyed it, but I was slightly let down that there was less metal in it than I was expecting.
There's
and
almost
more
no metal in
slapstick.
it, really.
Yeah, I did
It's-
like the metal club scene though. It was pretty fun.
Yeah, it's also not for nothing because we talked about this so much last week. Easily could you lose like 15 minutes.
Okay.
It is an hour and 43 minutes long. It's
Yeah.
a long ass movie. And so really me watching them not quite back to back, I think that was a disservice to Day of the Beast because it's a good movie. And it's I think that it's a very competently made movie. It looks great too. And I had no problems with the fact that it was a foreign film and that it was subtitled. I don't ever let anybody tell you that HMN is not cultured. We like foreign films.
True.
But I just found.
Well, we're
I
really
find-
early in the month, Scott. Just be careful.
Well, no, I know. I'm gonna like all the movies in the. In the
No, I
month.
know. We have a
At
good,
least me, like,
lineup.
Yeah,
We have a good
I think
lineup.
that this is kind of like a super solid foreign film February. Like best I could have imagined, especially with the concept of us doing it within the confines of movies that are 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, and 45, 50 years old.
Hello everyone, we're Superhero Stuff You Should Know, and if you think you know about superheroes and comic books, think again.
We got romance. We got action.
Romance?
We got comedy. We got everything you need, man. Come on down to Superhero Stuff You Should Know for all your superhero needs.
I don't know about this romance. What part are you talking about?
We've got all kinds of sketches and then deep dives on top of that. Come on down to Superhero Stuff You Should Know.
Alright, so come on down to... Wait, why did I say come on down? To Superhero Stuff You Should Know.
Well, Kyle, after you had your
Yeah.
friends sit down and watch this crazy ass movie, what would you have them watch next?
Basket Case. Honestly, it's like I know.
I
it
just
doesn't-
love the
They
way you
feel
said that with
equally
no
grimy.
like as if no explanation was needed.
No.
not needed.
I think that there's something to be said about the city and the economic structure of the city and the characters that you run into. And while it does not necessarily have that religious anything at all, it does have this sort of like frantic, I need to hide something or I need to hide/solve something that happens, and this feels truly like one of those competent independent films. And I know that being in Spain and the way that films are made there, particularly in '95, probably looks different than like the American independent scene. Like the way that particularly European countries support arts is different than the way that we do here in the States. But it does have this energy that it's like we're just gonna figure it the fuck out. Like we're just gonna figure out how to do the thing that we want to do. And Basket Case to me feels that way. So yeah, I went with Basket Case.
Right? How about you, Scott?
Am I allowed to not pick a movie, but rather to pick an episode of television?
Yeah.
Because I feel like you're going to say yes, so I'm just going to go ahead and do
Yeah.
it. But I would like to, especially since this was a long watch, I would shorten the night a little bit by pairing it with the second season musical episode from Todd and the Book of Pure Evil, The Phantom of Crowley High, which is also my favorite episode of Todd and the Book of Pure Evil.
I'm going to change up the tone a little bit, but this ties in beautifully with your pick, Scott, of a episode of Todd and the Book of Pure Evil, because, 4 years later, there was an American remake of this movie where also a gang of unlikely people were brought together to try to stop the end of the world in a little film called Dogma.
Okay. Yeah.
That would be a pretty wild ride, and I think it would work really
crazy.
well.
I think so too. I think that there's a lot of similarity to this, and I got to give a little bit of credit to Barb, because I was like, I'm trying to think of a movie that would match with like the heavy religious implications here, and she hadn't watched any of it. She just walked in as it ended, and she's like, I don't know, Dogma, and I was like, you just said a random name, but it actually is perfect. So shout out to Barb on that one.
What up, Barb?
Hey, were you liking this episode? You're like, man, my favorite podcast, so much more cultured. I hope I know everything that they've been up to, past, present, and future. Hit up our newsletter by emailing us at hmnpodcast@gmail.com, and then show your love and support through the Patreon, patreon.com/HMN Podcast, or going to our website, hmnpodcast.com, or our TeePublic store, and buying some sweet, sweet merch.
Also, you can probably check out our Letterboxd.
Oh, that's right. Now we have a lettered box as well.
Yes.
Thank you, Kyle, for that. And speaking of Kyle,
so much fun.
What did you watch, read, listen to, etc. that you want to talk about?
Okay. So,
He's like,
one.
big inhale.
Yeah, I had to look at my Letterboxd. No, so one of the on my Disney track. So as Newsies was probably the last thing that I had mentioned. So if you're following along at home, the timeline of where we're at. We're in the early 90s, and I definitely, I saw Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, too young, the same we all did, where there's a little bit of kinder trauma, or even if we went to the Disney World extravaganza, that was also horrifying, so I had no interest in exploring those anymore, even though now, as a horror fan, the Stuart Gordon and Brian Usna connection is lovely. But let me tell you that Honey, I Blew Up the Kid is equal, if not, in my eyes, even a little more fun than Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. Carly and I watched it. Carly looks to me and she says, I think this is my favorite kaiju movie. It is so much fun. And I think especially now, as a parent who has gone through / is in the throes of toddlerdom, like, Honey, I Blew Up the Kid is early toddler, not full language, but still a lot of character and a lot of energy. And this particular kid kills. And I think it's a set of twins that play the toddler in this movie, yeah. But I mean, incredible. And I had so much fun with it. And it does feel completely, even though it's in the same world as Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, technically, and sort of the way that they approached it is just a different version of this B sci-fi thing. They're on two different spectrums, but they are related, and it's and they're both done with such appreciation for what that could look like as a fun kids thing. Neither of I really appreciated, because they're such wacky concepts, and the fact that Disney gave them any money to do either of these at all is crazy to me. But the lean into this dead genre type thing to just try to make it for kids and both be pretty successful and fun is great. So Honey, I Blew Up the Kid is quite joyful.
Well, strap in, because I know that in the Kelly household, we were even bigger fans of the direct-to-DVD Honey, We Shrunk Ourselves.
Can't wait.
Starring a young Mila Kunis.
Can't wait.
In one of her earliest roles. Scott, how about you, buddy?
So I don't think that anybody would be surprised that I don't like the Resident Evil franchise, the movies. What a fucking surprise, right? I couldn't sleep the other night, and Netflix suggested Resident Evil Retribution. to me.
Okay.
I believe that was 2012.
Which one of the
I think it's
6 or
the
7
third out
is
of
that?
4.
Okay.
I'm going to take it. I'll investigate. Continue.
It's the second to last one because
Okay.
literally it took them 4 years to do the final one, which is literally Resident Evil, the final chapter, which I haven't seen that either. I was gobsmacked by how stupid this movie was, but it was like really entertainingly stupid. Like shit was happening that I could not believe. And I'm like watching this knowing that Paul W.S. Anderson, there are 5 of them. Okay, this is the 4th
No,
one.
that's part 5 of 6
out of
them.
6? Oh, fuck. That was way off. I just could not believe that Paul W.S. Anderson, the man that gave us Event Horizon, right?
Listen, the man's one success is greatly outweighed by a lot of his other movies.
Yeah. I mean, God bless him for being such a wife guy for Mila Jovovich. Like, that's fucking awesome. I love that for them. Can't save the movie. It makes no sense. It is an absolute... I don't even know who it's for. You know, it's one of those movies where you watch and you're like, who is the audience for this? And I have to be like, it has to be Chinese audiences. Like, I'm pretty sure that it's
Yeah,
Chinese
it's built
audience
for
that
the
made
overseas.
it. Yeah, like, I'm pretty sure. Like, it's the same thing with Transformers movies. Like, they're not for me. They just kill overseas. So, it was just such a strange watch. I watched it over the course of, like, 3 nights at, like, 2 a.m. and it was just a mind fuck of a movie. So much money, and I just kept bringing myself back to okay, imagine that this is just a live action version of the latter Resident Evil games, and it was comforting in that way. And I almost, but did not, purchase and download Resident Evil 4 for my Switch because it's still $40, and I bought it for $40 or $50 in 2005, so I don't want to spend that money a second time.
No, that's fair. And I have to say, your theory might be true that it's for the overseas audience, because I'm like hard pressed to think of a franchise that has 6 entries that I've heard so few people talk about beyond maybe the first movie.
The first one. But the first one wasn't made for overseas audiences. And
that's what I mean.
And they
it's
also...
just...
You know, like it's funny because if they're making them for a more conservative culture, it's odd because I know they're cutting minutes of gore from a zombie franchise for the overseas audiences, so that their censors don't cut it.
It's worth pointing out, in the exact same vein as movies that had more sequels than I realized because no one talks about it, is that Paul W.S. Anderson, not to be confused with another director of the same name, I believe
of maybe higher caliber. Who's to say?
I believe he did the remake of Death Race, of which I'm pretty sure there are 4 of those Death Race remakes
4
as well.
Death Race. So that makes 5 total Death Races?
Yeah, so there's Death Race 2000.
From like, was that 75?
And then like in 2008 they did Death Race, and there's been 3 more since that one. So like it's kind of bonkers. I'll do mine really quick. Netflix, I forgot that this movie came out in October. I finally got around to watching it like late December, early January, and it was really good. It made it onto my top 10 favorite films I watched in 2024. Woman of the Hour, which is the Anna Kendrick directed true crime-ish film about the serial killer who appeared on The Dating Game in the middle of his killings. It's really interesting. Anna Kendrick makes some really unique calls in the directing and the pacing of that particular movie. For those of you who haven't seen it, it does this really interesting, suspenseful trick where we're jumping back in time. We're jumping all over time between when he was killing people before he was on The Dating Game, when he was killing people after The Dating Game and eventually gets caught, and him getting prepared for The Dating Game. And the way that it does it, it builds this tension of like, you like the character that Anna Kendrick's playing, who is the woman who's on The Dating Game, but you're also like fully aware of who one of these 3 bachelors are as the show is going on and being like, dear God, I hope she doesn't pick that bachelor. like it's kind of interesting. It also like wildly deviates from a lot of real things that happen because it's a movie, but also because like there's really no information about the girl who was actually on that episode of the dating game.
Yeah.
So like they had to take a couple liberties of giving her some type of compelling background story, so it's not just like girl who
It's
showed
kind
up.
of. It feels like it's kind of comparable to Shadow of the Vampire, where it's like it's like there's mythos involved that
It
doesn't
has-
have like that you have liberty with, like at least you know.
It has Shadow of the Vampire. It also has not quite to this level, but it has this like Inglorious Bastards revisionist history
Yeah.
aspect
Yeah.
of it, because
Sure.
like by all accounts the girl just showed up and did the thing that the dating game has them do. But like to do this for like a modern audience, there's this element where she throws away the questions because she finds them too sexist and starts going off the cuff and like kind of indirectly embarrasses the machismo of the contestants, and like that obviously is not based in any element of what really happened in a 70s dating show.
Yeah,
but
absolutely not.
you know, it was worth watching. It was really well made. I'm excited to see if Anna Kendrick directs more things because she did a really good job with the direction of it. I mean, she's always a reliable actress in stuff, but this was like, oh wow, she is at least a double threat at this point. So, and her book's
let's
pretty
give her
funny.
a
So
triple
I'll
threat
give her,
because she's a great singer.
that's true. I'll give her a quadruple threat because I read her autobiography and it was fairly funny at times.
Let's go, Anna.
Okay.
So yeah, Anna can't be stopped. But you know who also can't be stopped? Horror movie night. So keep.
Before you sign off, the Beast Unleashed is horrible. I've almost finished the
much did you
can. It's
drink of
really
it?
bad. It's really bad.
Finish
It's really
it.
bad.
Go. No.
Chug it.
No.
Chug it for the
Just like-
videos.
No, please
No.
don't. Dear God.
No.
You're listening to the Geekscape Network.